Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Energy MD podcast, where we help you resolve your chronic fatigue, whether it's from long COVID or chronic fatigue syndrome, so you can get back to living your best life. So, if you've heard me speak before, you've heard me talk about all the different causes of chronic fatigue and long COVID, and one of them happens to be thyroid deficiency that's found in so many people. I would say probably about 80% of all the people that we see. So, I'm going to be talking with a thyroid expert today, my friend Divya Gupta. And so let's learn a little bit about her. So Divya Gupta, a board certified holistic nutritionist and wellness coach. She is a board certified holistic nutritionist and wellness coach. Fueled by her own health challenges, including gallbladder removal and Hashimoto's, she has dedicated herself to a mission, guiding motivated individuals who yearn for a future beyond conventional approaches to their health challenges with personalized solutions, enabling them to live life on their own terms. So Divya, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Evan, I'm so honored to be here and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So we're going to be talking about thyroid and its relationship to energy and fatigue.
Mhm.
So I think, kind of starting in, I guess we can start right there, in terms of that connection. What is that connection between thyroid and energy levels?
Gosh, so much. And I know before even we dive into that, it's an interesting fact that you mentioned earlier on, like, 80% of people you see or 60% have a thyroid condition. And that's something, even when I was looking at stats, it's in the last decade, the number of hypothyroidism cases have tripled.
Mm,
And you would think that maybe there is more diagnosis, more testing happening, or it could be because of what's happening in our environment. It could be the toxins, it's the food, it's the lifestyle, it's stress. Like, what is it going on that the number of cases or number of people dealing with thyroid issues is going up as well? And in American Thyroid Association states that at least 12 to 15% of people will develop a thyroid condition during their lifetime. And women are 5 to 8 times more likely. And I'm sure you can see that in your stats with your uh, your patient population as well. So it is a topic definitely very near and dear to me because I myself, as you said in my bio, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's when I was 25, and my gallbladder was removed before that. And okay, and hey, here you have Hashimoto's, you have hypo, here's your medication, and off you go. And they did the touted, well, oh, it's in your family, it's genetics. Every, like, yes, all women, my mom, my sister, every woman in my family has it, so you have to have it. And something I knew didn't sit right with me then. I didn't know what at that point, and I was in a completely different career. I'm very stereotypical Indian immigrant. I went the engineering route, working in tech, to know that there has to be more to this, and there has to be a way out because I can't just taking medication, can't keep living like this. And then down the road, what does it mean? Because I was seeing things unfold in my mom's health, from one autoimmune condition to getting another one, rheumatoid arthritis. That didn't look great. I'm like, I don't want that to be me. So that's how I started my journey. And, with energy, you're the energy MD, and, you resolve chronic fatigue. And we know there could be so many causes. If somebody goes to the doctor and be like, I don't have energy, and it's like, where do you start? There could be a number of causes. But if people know they do have hypothyroidism, at least that's a place that we can start, because your thyroid hormone are so closely related, can really influence your energy. So, that's a place to start. But we also know, like, I don't know the percentage, but a lot of people have subclinical hypothyroidism. It's just the lab ranges are so wide that they don't get diagnosed, but they are dealing with all the symptoms as well. So the way to your, going back to your question, the way the thyroid hormone can influence energy, I think there are four different mechanisms. Number one is, if you have hypothyroidism, more often than not, they have a vitamin B12 deficiency as well. And it's not because of the thyroid hormone, but most of the cases, at least in the US, are autoimmune in condition when it comes to hypothyroidism. And that can really impact your stomach lining and the protein that's needed to absorb vitamin B12. And again, I'm not sure about you. I see a lot of my clients are vegan or vegetarian route, and they're already deficient with B12, and we know how important B12 Bs are for energy. So that definitely has seen one, and just taking thyroid medication is not going to now suddenly make you absorb B12 better. The second, way the thyroid hormone influences is, as I was talking about, its autoimmune condition like Hashimoto's, and there with any autoimmune condition, your immune system is in play. You have inflammation going on, and when you have inflammation in the body, you're not going to be working at 100%. Your body is less efficient. It could be 80, 97, depending on you know everything else going on. So you're not going to be working, your body is not going to be efficiently working. So that's another way how your thyroid through the autoimmune part could be affecting your energy. Number three, as we, thyroid hormone, which this is something people may know or have heard of, but your thyroid hormone is your metabolic conductor. It directly influences how your cells take up their nutrition, your oxygen, and how much energy is burnt and energy is made. So it has a direct influence on that. And it's your T3 hormone. We'll get into the hormones, but T3 is the active hormone that your cells can absorb to do that. And most people, if they are on thyroid medication, are on just T4, and our body has to convert it, and we can go down that path. So our thyroid hormone has a direct influence on our metabolism, how we burn energy. There are studies which says, it has an impact on our mitochondria to produce ATP, which is our energy currency. So, you don't have enough thyroid hormone, that's going to be impacted. And number four is, your thyroid hormone also has an influence on number of other hormones. Before we got started, we were talking about music and orchestra. Similarly, our hormones also work our endocrine system works as an orchestra. Your thyroid hormone just doesn't work on its own. The sex hormones, your cortisol, everything has to line up. So your thyroid hormone can influence your cortisol and vice versa. And we need cortisol, and it gets such a bad rap, but we need cortisol to get out of bed in the morning. And people are stressed. We were just talking about this 2024 year has been stressful for yourself or myself. There's so many roller coasters. There's, so much going on, the holidays now. And it can, high cortisol can influence how much thyroid hormone, the conversion from T4 to T3. So it could be external stressors or even internal stressors, if you have a lot going on in your gut and other things. And the other is also if you have an autoimmune condition of thyroid, insulin. Also, how well you use insulin, and if your cells to absorb glucose. Glucose is one of the fuel sources that your body takes up to produce energy as well. And especially people with Hashimoto's have an issue with carbohydrate metabolism, and your brain is not getting the glucose it needs in the cell. So, and even with leptin resistance, which is again a hormone produced by your fat cells that can influence the satiety and energy. So I know there's so much more, but that's because it's so complicated. I wish it was so easy. You have hypothyroidism, take the medication, and your energy comes back. But you and I both know there are so many people who are still, hey, the medication doesn't seem to work, or I'm still fatigued, I'm still tired, or I feel marginally better, because your thyroid hormone can influence energy in so many different ways. And even to optimize it, it's like a multi-pronged approach.
Yeah, you mentioned so many things in there. I just want to touch on a couple of them. I think the first one is it's important for people to understand that thyroid really is, two conditions. It's the Hashimoto's, it's the autoimmunity, it's the immune system attacking the thyroid, right? And then
Mhm.
it's leaving the thyroid, or the thyroid hormone is then low, and that's what people are replacing. But it really is that combination of the two that I want to get into in just a minute. But let's start off with, people who are listening to this who are like, I've got fatigue, I've got long COVID. How do I know if I have hypothyroidism or low thyroid?
Yeah. So the best way is, first of all, let's talk about the symptoms, right? Number one, in terms like before you even go get the lab test to get an official diagnosis, fatigue is number one. And it's a different kind of fatigue. It's not something that, you sleep, you had a hard day, you go to sleep, you rest and, recuperate and you feel fine. Thyroid fatigue, and this is something I experienced too before my diagnosis, no amount of sleep would, make me feel okay. When you wake up in the morning, you're still tired. I'm like, I'm slept for 10 hours. I can go for more. It's a very different kind of fatigue. And if you have that, you know it because, you haven't been physically, putting your body through a lot that, like I shouldn't be this tired. So that's number one. You feel that fatigue is completely different. Number two is weight gain with hypothyroidism, which is again a co- very common that people will experience is weight gain. No matter what you do, no matter how much exercise you do, like you cut down your calories, you're just gaining weight because it goes back to that your metabolism is impacted. You're not burning as much at rest as you would normally with the slow thyroid hormone. You're gaining weight. And then brain fog and can brain fog and not having mental clarity. Your brain is not getting all its fuel it needs. Then it can be not wanting to, when you're feeling tired, you're gaining weight, your brain, you don't have the clarity, you don't want to exercise either, right? So everything slows down. You can have muscle weakness and joint pains as well that can prevent that. That was one of my topmost. My symptom was as an early, like 20 something, my muscles would hurt, like weird, like it's just like it's a weird kind of a pain. Like I didn't lift heavy weight or I didn't like do anything, but my muscles are so sore and I'm tired all the time. So those are, again, there are, there, since your thyroid hormone influence every cell, tissue, organs in your body, your symptoms can also vary. Hair loss, dry skin, itchy skin, even carpal tunnel. That all of that. There could be a lot of symptoms, but fatigue, weight gain, brain fog, even digestive issues, because that can slow down. Constipation is pretty common as well, so you could experience that too. So that's one, to start really noticing how are you feeling and what are these symptoms. And to really know if you have, to really get the diagnosis, you want to get the lab work, the blood work done. But please, the standard, the golden rule still in conventional medicine is just TSH, which is the thyroid stimulating hormone. And that's just one part of the story. That's just the hormone that, the pituitary gland in your brain is creating to send the signal to your thyroid, hey, make thyroid hormone. And most conventional system uses even now, just uses that as a standard way to measure if you're hypothyroidism or not. So if that is high, and that is again the range, our standard ranges are quite wide. Like if you're above 4.5, you can go from 0.45 to 4.5. Then they would say, okay, it's hypothyroidism. Because I know it seems a little odd. If it's high, it's low, because that means your brain, it's screaming at your thyroid gland, hey, make more thyroid hormone. That's why you're low. But again, I like it to be more optimal. We want it to be ideally between 1 and 2. So even if you're in the, I would say, upper quadrant or the lower quadrant of your standard range, you might be dealing with subclinical hypothyroid symptoms, even if it's just TSH. But I would recommend and suggest for everyone to get a full thyroid panel. Number one is a TSH. Then getting your free T4 and free T3. So free T4 it's a main hormone that the thyroid gland produces after it gets a signal, 70 to 80%, and people can, they're still out there. It could be more or less, and a little amount of T3. So your T4, everyone, this thing, it's inactive. It does nothing. It needs to be converted into the active form, which is T3. So our thyroid gland produces some of it, but our body, our liver, our gut, our peripheral tissues, different areas in the body converts from T4 to T3. So it's important. And T3 is what our cells absorb, and T3 is what we can do something about it. So that's what can help your energy and everything in your body. So T4, T3, TSH, getting those antibodies tested for TPO and TPG, especially for Hashimoto's, just to rule out if there is an autoimmune aspect to it. And even getting reverse T3 is is something I recommend because if there's a lot of stress going on in the body, inflammation and blood sugar issues, your T4 may be going down the reverse T3 path, which it has a role to play. We need some of it, but if it's too high, it's just the opposite of T3. Your cells don't, it looks like T3, but it's the another twin, which just doesn't do the same job as the T3. So getting these 6 tests as a basic panel would be helpful to really determine if you have hypothyroidism, whether even if it's subclinical or if it's a conversion issue that's going on, hey, your thyroid is functioning, but it's not converting. So we can really then have a targeted protocol or way to then help with that.
Excellent. Yeah, I do things very similarly. I don't do the reverse T3 because I see it as a stress marker, and everybody that I
Mm-hmm.
see has it elevated, and it doesn't really change my treatment. And the antibodies, I always have a question on because, 90% of all low thyroid is Hashimoto's. It's autoimmune based, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
most of the people, or the majority of the people that I see who have low thyroid, we can assume that it's autoimmune. And so the question that I always have is, with that lab test, what am I going to do
Mm-hmm.
differently? So, what do you do differently if you see antibodies versus not antibodies?
Yeah, it's interesting. I run it because it's good to see if if I know there's an autoimmune, if the lab says it's high, there is autoimmunity present. So AVA confirms it is driving the hypothyroidism, and then we really need to focus on reducing that attack, right? Working on the gut, even though everyone needs to work on their gut, but ensuring that because once we get one autoimmune condition, you're 3 times likely to get another one. It also helps with compliance with clients. Say, hey, there's an autoimmune condition going on, just to have that values. And we know no matter what, my doctor still says, hey, once you have an autoimmune condition, you're always going to have it. And I refuse that, uh, again, that's another. I try not to argue with her. I'm like, just do what's needed. I go see her. But yes, those antibodies, I would like to see it reduced. Right? It's one way to, mine used to be in 4,000s, the values. So at least if I know there's an autoimmunity and they have the values, and with the work we do, hey, are they going down? Because even if they reduce, the antibodies reduced by 75% or 80, the inflammation is going down, the attack is going on, even if they're not completely gone. So that's one way I use it. And two, there have been scenarios where the thyroid numbers are not optimal, or they're having all the hypothyroidism symptoms where there's no autoimmunity happening. So then the begs the question, what else could be driving? Because we know how important, or how the thyroid and the sex hormones and the adrenals work together. Hey, is it the stress driving the thyroid, or is it's your stress is driving low thyroid function? Um, is it a lot of women in perimenopause and menopause is when they get diagnosed with thyroid, so it's the changes in the other hormone that's putting a lot of stress in the body and changing that. So at least that can help inform, hey, how much do we really focus on the thyroid, or do we work on the blood sugar, your liver health, your gut health, and work on the stress that can make your body feel, okay, I'm safe, and your thyroid can calm down. Because we know, cortisol and thyroid are the brakes and the accelerator in the car, right? They're not going to, car won't run if I press both. So it helps inform, what could be driving those functions. So that's how I use it. And then at least track it every 6 months or a year to see how it's changing.
Nice. And I'm glad you brought up, the adrenals and that relationship because oftentimes you can get false picture with the thyroid labs when the adrenals aren't working optimally as well. So it throws a little bit of wrench into those tests.
Mm.
And so, like you said, conventional medicine, they're going to be measuring the TSH. They're not measuring these other components. And so oftentimes they're getting not the full picture. And, you talked about how the stats are 12 to 15% of everybody, all women will develop hypothyroidism in their lifetime. I bet it's 2 or 3 times that when you actually look at people who are underdiagnosed, right? Because
Oh,
they go to see their doctor and the doctor says, your TSH is fine. You got nothing to worry about. And you're like, but I still have low thyroid symptoms, right?
yeah, absolutely. And it's listening more to the symptoms, right? Tests inform us, it's good, but listening to how is the person feeling. And by the time things show up in the blood work, like out of range, it can take a long time because our body is working for us and not against us. It's working really hard to be in homeostasis in that balance. So the blood work may not be showing it, but you are feeling have all the classic symptoms. And especially, I know we're not talking getting about because my stories even started with my gallbladder removal, which you and I know the liver, gallbladder, and thyroid are so intricately connected. And now I'm like, if anybody is dealing with gallbladder pain or issues, hey, go get your thyroid checked because it influences your liver function, your bile production, the storage. I wish I did not have to lose an organ, but it's the purpose. It got me here today with that story. But yeah, like a lot of people are not diagnosed and are still suffering unnecessarily.
Yeah. So we've talked about symptoms and labs. So at this point, people who are listening might be saying, okay, so I feel like I have thyroid issues. Now I know what labs I need to go and ask for from my practitioner. If you're not getting what you need from a conventional doc, go to see functional nutritionist like Divya or, some sort of more natural practitioner,
Mhm.
functional medicine practitioner. So then what do you do with that information? So it comes back and the thyroid is low. Somebody's got these symptoms. Where do you go next?
Yeah, great. So again, everyone, we're all unique. So again, really understanding, getting to know for me, it's important to get to know my client really well, what's going on in their life, which stage they are in, especially peri or menopause, that I know the other sex hormones are also influencing it. And I always, at least to my community, I always share that your thyroid is just like the tip of the iceberg. That's what is screaming, making noise, or you can say it's a yellow canary in the coal mine that's, raising the alarm that something is off. We really need to look at, just like the iceberg, that we don't see what's going on underneath, how deep it is or how wide it is. Similarly, when it comes to the thyroid, if it is maybe it's low functioning, whether it could be autoimmune in nature or not, we got to work on your liver, we got to work on your adrenals, and got to work on the gut. Those are the three main, it's like the foundations of our health that we need to work on. And once we get to some sort of balance, your thyroid will also come back to balance or work better for you. So that's where I start, like looking at not just the thyroid numbers, but also getting a comprehensive blood work. And I'm so glad it's getting more democratized these days to go get your own blood work, and it's not that expensive. We're stuck in the old insurance system. These blood works are not that expensive. You can go run your own labs, or find someone to do that. At least it's good to know baseline. So with the information that I have, it's starting there to first is really optimizing or improving the digestive function. Want to get some energy back. If people need to start feeling even a little better before you do something more harsh or like heavy detoxes. I get on discovery calls and I talk to people and they're like, I've been doing this detox, that detox, I've got this supplement and stuff. And I'm like, I wish it was that easy. I wish it all worked. There's a reason it's not working, right? There's a art to it to really understand, to get your body to a place where it feels safe enough. I can get rid of this. So really working on foundations, digestive function, optimizing that. If, somebody I'm working with, she goes to the bathroom every once in 3 days. I'm like, okay, right now we just need to work on resolving that constipation. So working on the gut. So doing a stool test and a food sensitivity test so we can, hey, what does your gut need? What's going on? Improve your digestive function, support your liver. Again, even with liver, we can't go too hard depending on if they've been on a sad American diet. Got to move slow because you're not going to be ready. But, how can we support the liver function? And as we know, 93% of our US population is metabolically unhealthy. Blood sugar balance comes into place as well. So, really working on those foundational items, depending on where the focus needs to be for that particular client, one more than the other, starting there. And stress management. Again, lifestyle also goes hand in hand, managing your stress. Um, you know, we can't, we can't supplement our way out of stress or anything else. So what works? Breath work, meditation, journaling, doing nothing. One of my clients, from a suggestion for him was just put some white space on your calendar. That's it. Block some 15 minutes where you do nothing at all. That's it. You don't have like, he just had to like, I had to keep moving, or they have to lift weights or take the dog out for a walk. Can't sit still. I'm like, that's a lot. Your body needs some time to rest and recover. So do nothing for 15 minutes a day. So really working, getting started there. And then depending on how the gut is working, really start, if there's any eradication that needs to be done. And again, there's a step-by-step process, but at the same time, fortifying the body with the right nutrition that it has the energy to do that, get supporting the mitochondria. So, they're supporting with, most people have low vitamin D, I'll see, or, zinc, for thyroid to work, it needs zinc, it needs vitamin D, it needs the right protein. How can we use diet and lifestyle to provide that nutrition and the right digestive support so you can actually digest and absorb those nutrients as well? And at the same time, trying to remove, you know, reducing the toxic exposure. We're all surrounded, we can't live in a bubble, but how can we reduce the toxic exposure? And for my number one pet peeve is your water. Is please, like everyone listening, do not drink tap water. That's the number one source of getting a lot of toxins into our system. So I think that's number one, getting an RO filter, electrolytes, getting some sweat in, whether it is through exercise, if you can't for any reason because you're not ready, get in a sauna, find a sauna so you can just sweat. I have my PEMF mat that I'll turn on like 10, 15 minutes a day just to help. All these adjunctive practices, we have so many tools. They will all work, but it's not just that. Diet and lifestyle is the hardest. And people will rather, I'll go get a massage or I'll maybe go sit in a sauna, which is great, but you still will have to make some diet changes, add some supplements, and start at the foundations and then provide supportive supplements for the thyroid. Depending, for some people, they just need some support. And maybe they don't need medication when everything else balances out. It's a hard question to answer because there's no one way that fits all or one methodology. It is personalized to each person, but it's, again, the foundation is your liver health, your gut health, your digestion, your adrenals, and the lifestyle aspect. And some people do need medication, and that's fine. Everyone is like, I want to get off my medication. I'm like, sometimes hormones are life. And if you've been on medication like I have for the last 20 years, I still take my medication. Maybe it's my thyroid is atrophied a bit. It will never produce. It's like a finger that's cut. It'll never grow back completely. So I do need the medication, but my goal is, if I do everything else, the lowest dosage that I can be on so that my body thyroid can function. So, and some people may need that. And then I work with their medical provider to test it and hopefully reduce the dosage over time.
Excellent. Yeah, it sounds like I mean, we have very similar philosophies. There's I call a level one problem a problem that can be fixed with lifestyle. So you're
Hmm.
sleeping more, you're drinking more water, you remove the foods that you're not supposed to be eating that are triggering some of that autoimmunity, gluten,
Yeah.
dairy, sugars, processed
Hmm.
foods, right? And that's a level one problem. If that, it helps to improve the symptoms. And then you replace the deficiencies, like you're optimizing your thyroid and the adrenals and et cetera, and
Hmm.
making things like work better, right? And that can help so many people. And then if people are still not helped, or if they're not able to get to the root of resolving the autoimmunity, they have to remove those toxins that are in the body, the heavy
Hmm.
metals and chemicals and molds and infections, et cetera, and avoiding that ongoing exposure like you were talking about, right? So
Hmm.
it's such a wonderful way of phrasing it. I think the other thing that I wanted to touch on was constipation. A lot of people
Hmm.
don't realize that low thyroid is a major cause of constipation. If you can't have regular bowel movements, oftentimes it's because your thyroid is,
Yep.
yeah, right?
Yep.
So
It's
this has been an amazing conversation. I so appreciate the work that you're doing. Um, we'll drop the link below for your website, but can you just tell us again what it is? DivyaGupta.net, right?
That's correct. And I know we covered a lot and it's hard to remember, but once if everyone goes to the website and if they want to get a free guide of a comprehensive symptoms, if you're dealing with hypothyroidism and the labs that I talked and with the optimal values and what does each of those functioning, because I believe everyone should be the CEO of your own body. Get educated. Like, when you go to the doctors work for you. So ask for these tests, take print out the guide and see where, or if you have labs, check where you are. So get more knowledgeable. Knowledge is power, and then you can advocate for yourself or ask the right questions. And if you're not getting what you want, you can go find someone else. You always have the freedom to go find someone else that works for you. It has to be a collaboration. It's not a one-way street. That's as my endocrinologist. I sometimes tell her like, I need this XYZ. We go back and forth, and then she gives in. I'm like, okay, here's the research. Just prescribe X. I just need this, or I need these tests. When I was not able to run it by myself, it's like take ownership. It's our body. We need to be the CEO. We need to know it the best, and we know it the best.
Yeah, so if you have hypothyroidism or you think you do, definitely get Divya in your corner. As you can see, she's got a lot of knowledge and she's a great
Mhm.
advocate. So
Thank you.
thanks so much for joining me here today, Divya.
Thanks a lot for having me, Evan, and have a wonderful holiday season.
I hope you learned something on today's podcast. If you did, please share it with your friends and family and leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. It's really helpful for getting this information out to more people who desperately need it. Sharing all the experts I know and love and the powerful tips I have is one of my absolute favorite things to do. Thanks for being part of my community. Just a reminder, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional care by a doctor or other qualified medical professional. It is provided with the understanding that it does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services. Thanks for listening and have an amazing day.